The question of the day is, when should kids be allowed to transition? Before we even answer that question, let me put a giant lie being spread to bed once and for all. Trans kids are real and they exist. There would be no such thing as trans adults if trans kids did not exist. Anyone who says otherwise is absolutely delusional and needs mental health treatment post haste. I'm a transsexual adult. I was a transsexual child, but back in my day, we didn't have the vocabulary for our medical birth defect like kids do today. It was harder for us to navigate it and figure it out. My generation paved the way for kids today, but it's all gone terribly off the rails, and look where we are now. Now, on to our main question. Let's start with social transition. Kids can socially transition at any age. Let them change their name, pronouns, cut their hair, and change how they dress. That is all fine. Let them explore who they are and what they feel comfortable in. You have to allow these kids to explore and experiment. They can do that at any age without medical intervention. Allowing a kid to socially transition isn't going to hurt anyone so long as the kid is in therapy and the parents are involved. That's the key right there. The kid needs to be in therapy and the parents need to be involved. The school needs to be involved. Everyone needs to be working together as one cohesive team to protect the welfare of the minor. As for medical transition, 18. Bare minimum, you need to be 18 to consent to anything medical. Children are not capable of consenting to these permanent, irreversible drugs and surgeries. Their minds are not developed enough to fully grasp the lifelong consequences of these drugs and surgeries. They do not understand they are becoming lifelong medical patients when they go down this road. Kids these days are taking these drugs and having these surgeries as a way to run from their unresolved trauma. These kids have mental illness and other things going on in their lives. The vast majority of kids claiming trans today will grow out of it in the next 5 years. The whole reason they will grow out of it is because they were never transsexual in the first place to begin with. Being transsexual is rare. It's a hormonal birth defect and only occurs in 0.003 to 0.008% of the entire world's population. This isn't something you wake up and decide to be one day. This isn't something you can choose to be. You are born this way because of how the brain and body are exposed to hormones during fetal development. That is the actual science of transsexualism. Everything you think you know about trans is bullshit and lies. Everything you think you know about transsexualism is bullshit and lies. Parents have been brainwashed into castrating their children. Children are not being told they are being castrated. Children are having their rights to bodily autonomy taken away from them by adults who should know better. It's not helping that parents are being scared into medically transiting their kids by big corporate LGBT land. These kids are not killing themselves because they can't have hormones. That's a load of horse shit if I've ever heard one. They're offing themselves because they can't handle puberty and bullying. They need to get thicker skins and learn that life doesn't revolve around feelings, it revolves around facts. We have been raising a whole new generation of wussies and pansies who get offended by literally everything. If we blanket validate and drug every child who wakes up and decides they are trans one day, we are going to see a massive spike in kids offing themselves from being on drugs they never needed in the first place. If you are not transsexual, these drugs will not work for you. They will make things worse. These drugs and surgeries only help those of us who were actually born legitimately transsexual. People need to wrap their heads around that. I want to give you a real world example of how these drugs hurt people instead of helping them. There was a man named Alan Turing. He was a brilliant mathematician. He lived in Britain during World War II. The British government hired Turing to break Enigma. Turing ended up building a giant computer. The only German Turing needed to know in order to break Enigma was Heil Hitler. After cracking Enigma, the British government started going after Turing. They wanted to imprison him for being gay. His choice was 2 years jail prison time or the very same drugs we are giving children today. The exact same drugs. 7 months after starting these drugs, Turing ended up committing suicide. The drugs affected his brain in the opposite way they are supposed to work. He suffered all that depression from the drugs. The drugs don't help if you are not transsexual. They make everything worse. That is the real reason kids are killing themselves. My overall point is this: stop castrating your kids.